My name is Will, actually, and yeah, of course I have a podcast. I'm broadcasting all the way from my mother's basement to bring you all the King's Voices, where we talk about drag, gender, performance, and everything in between. Now, I know I was taking a little bit of a break just to focus on school, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to interview today's guest. He's a Taiwanese-born American performance artist specializing in the art of drag. Assigned female at birth, he takes on hypermasculine theatrical expression, known in modern times as drag king performance, to give social commentary on culture and politics with comedic jabs. He's traveled internationally to host events and provide cheeky improvised interviews. After 15 years of performing, he's considered a prominent king, voted one of the top 25 in the world. Time Out New York says, "You've never seen anything like the joyously mad drag king Wang Newton. The self-aware entertainer is a crossbreed of a perverse Benny Hill and a Japanese game show acid trip." Please welcome to the show, Dr. Wang Newton.
Hi, or should I say, hey baby. I perform as Dr. Wang Newton.
And so you are currently in Los Angeles, right?
Currently,
Yeah. So tell us, as we get started, a little bit about who Dr. Wang Newton is and how he became the international sensation that he is.
First of all, this is a number one kind of show. This is all about drag king, so I'm super excited because it's really needed. 15 years ago, almost 16, is when I started. So we're talking about 2004. Yeah, it started as a Halloween costume, unexpectedly. And I know that that's a story that's kind of common, right? But you have to understand, maybe just from the perspective of pre social media.
Yep.
Like 2004. Okay, the internet sort of started in the 90s. We're ramping up, but we haven't quite hit social media yet.
Right.
So, also, no queens on TV. So talking about this completely small but interesting time period where we got to be present with each other, but you also had an audience that didn't really know what drag was.
Right.
And let alone drag kings. So I think that was a super important and it ends up being kind of a big factor of my journey.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had a birthday party in New York, and the requirement for the October 30th birthday was to wear a wig and black clothing. I was bored AF in my cubicle, like just just wanting an outlet.
Yeah.
And I think what few people don't really know about me is that I used to be a former club kid. So every night, changing my looks, promoting for every theme every night at Shampoo nightclub in Philadelphia. And it was the coolest club because it was mentored by Steve Lewis, like consultant, old head in the scene. And so we had this killer kind of New York style vibe in Philadelphia. And that was a big influence on me. Fast forward, you're talking about, again, bored in the cubicle. Bored in the cubicle, what? And it was just like, what do I already own? What do I want to buy? I don't want to spend too much money. I already had the dildo, last name Wang. I just put together and bam, Wang was born.
That's so fun. So I find it really interesting in people's origin stories how they go from, for a lot of the newer kings, it's like I decided to become a king because I saw kings, or I was doing burlesque and I wanted to perform, as masculine or as male. But especially for kings who didn't necessarily have the ability to go on Instagram and just say, oh, this is a thing. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is, there's a Facebook group about drag kings, right? So I want to be a part of that. So what made you go from Halloween costume to performance I guess, and or how did you find a community or build a community of drag kings as a result?
Okay. So I would say I love sharing this because it feels like it's personal to me, along with the time period. Um, what you have is, again, me as a club kid, so enjoying costumes, enjoying different looks, constantly changing my looks. And I actually was more femme back then. So it really was a moment in time where people were asking me to show up at events. And
cool.
I was interested in acting, but I didn't realize that this was the route. Like, I'm a little embarrassed to kind of say that this really was an introduction to Kings. I didn't expect to. I didn't necessarily need to as a gender expression per se. Now, my masculine side and my cheeky ass comedic side needed an outlet.
Yeah.
Trust, it needed an outlet. It was like, let me out! Oh my God, what's a stage job? Like, but me was just like, oh, people asking me to go to parties, okay. And then when it came to Christmas. When it came to Christmas, it was like, okay, y'all can pay me now. Because it was so consistent. I had to get used to being a man. I had to get used to the fact that the world was reacting to me. That they wanted some Wang. Some Wang up in there.
Yeah.
So really blessed with that. And here's the thing. Gut feeling. I kid you not, to this day, it was the biggest gut feeling. No muse, no art, baby. It's all right there.
Yes.
If you're not inspired, if you're not pulled, if you're not enthusiastic, yes, then why do it?
Yeah.
And I think that it was the gut feeling that actually pulled me. I'll be straight up. I was timid back then where I was in my spiritual development. I had some shame to process around my sexuality, guilt, shame. That's definitely a cultural thing for my journey. And it was very slow. But if it wasn't the world pulling me, and a year after performing, literally just a few months after December, right? It started to just, Philadelphia, shout out to Philly, being a smaller town, right? Big city in numerical population, but the scene was small and downtown was small. So you just had this lively kind of community.
Yeah.
Because we partied with each other, we took care of each other. That was my introduction to community. So I got asked by like in the Rittenhouse area, it's sort of like a posh area, right?
Yep.
So I already got asked to do a monthly because they were just like, what is this? They didn't need to call it Drag King. They were just like, whatever that hot mess is, we'll take it. So I don't think I had limiting beliefs. I had my internal limiting beliefs about, what is this? Should I, and I'm a little embarrassed to say I didn't know too much about drag history. I didn't know. Like, I performed with drag queens at Shampoo. Like, there was a lot of queerness happening. But the history, I did not know. And that's what I love about what you're doing. That's what I love about dragkinghistory.com. Telling us the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I find it's so fascinating. And there's a couple of different roads that I want to follow based on what you said. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the internalized shame and how culture plays into who you became as a king. But I also want to talk a little bit about performance, right? Because, before we started talking on camera, one of the things we were talking about is, drag king history in general needs to be told by the people who are creating that history,
Mm-hmm.
right? And often what happens is in discussions about drag kings, we don't really hear about what drag king performance is, except by outside observers who don't necessarily like it, or by people who are just trying to use it to justify things about gender identity, right? Which is not to say that it doesn't. I think that drag and gender identity are like, but I'm so interested in the performative aspect of it,
The
right?
performance, oh my gosh, that took years to cultivate.
Yeah.
That took years. Like, I mean, I was ballsy, as like I gave zero fucks.
Which is
It
great.
was, again, stemming from being in the club scene. I was out 6 nights a week, dancing my ass off. Um, Again, based on every theme, whether it was Asian night, college night, gay night, whatever theme that, and the rave heyday, or the tail end of the rave scene. So, you're just talking about various audiences, and I just got to change my look. So that you have to understand that's the foundation, as well as taking acting classes or considering. One of the things, super quick, that I like to share is that George Takei himself said to me, Mr. Sulu, yes. Uh, well, because we hired him and as a speaker, right? And at that time, I was interested in being an extra. So that's how naive I was. I was like, wow, it's so fun. Like, so do you have any advice? Like, and he just very politely kind of looked at me and said, why be an extra when you can be the star?
Right.
Like, yeah, like aim bigger.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And so that does tie in a little bit to culturally, like, in how we see ourselves or how we see so little of ourselves.
Yeah.
Just like that for later. But yes, at that time, it was a solid foundation for me, but unbeknownst to me.
Yeah.
Top of that, then I did the usual route. I was lip syncing, and I had backup bitches, the Rice Girls. I
Yes, you
Yeah, I
did. That's
performed
great.
Erica Stanley, sort of a first wifey, if you will, first concubine. You know, they did drag as a queen and a king. So I already had a little like beginner's luck.
Yeah.
That had to progress to people recommending me do stand up. So then I tried a little bit of stand up, and I wasn't really feeling it at the time. I also had a different relationship to failure. Right. So those instances that I didn't deem to be successful, I thought I was a failure. So maybe, for better or for worse, maybe I did stop doing a full comedic set. Maybe I got stopped when I moved to New York for a bit, right? Just the not having an audience,
Right.
not having a built-in audience. Those little things. But I did explore typical drag as far as the shows. And it progressed to the point where Wang TV started. So that was later on during Fashion Week. And I grew up on MTV, so I always loved like the microphone. And that bit of karaoke flair just to start singing, wherever, little tidbits. And the interviewing started because here I think is a key point. I did not wait to be booked. An entire world where if you're not producing, you're barely getting booked. So I did get booked certainly some of the time.
Yeah.
But when you want to be booked more without the know-how of sending out, professional things, you were waiting on them to book you. Isn't that weird? Like, to think about yourself when you're younger.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Like,
yeah.
now you're just like, here's my reel, here's my headshot, here's,
Yeah. When you're just getting started.
Right, when you're just getting started. So you're making me think back.
Yeah.
And it took some gumption. It took certainly some knowingness that what I was doing was couldn't put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that gut feeling. I was like, I don't know, but okay. So I threw up a website right away,
Smart.
immediately pixelated my Wang. It was a big one, hanging
Of course.
out. And I just went with it. Yeah, I had these little cards in Philly,
Mm-hmm.
actual wallet-sized photos, that if you cover downtown Philly, all the coffee shops,
Mm-hmm.
where you could kind of like get your party out, right? That's how. So I took my promoting skills
Yep.
and I added just some things that came along the way. And there were these glamour shots from this Asian photo store at the Gallery Mall.
Mm-hmm.
And I met these two gay boys on the train and they had these wallet-sized photos. I was like, oh my God, what is this? They're wearing matching t-shirts. They were just like, yeah, next to each other.
Oh my God.
I was like, where did you guys get this? And so I had to go and I got wing shots like ASAP. I didn't care what anyone thought of me.
Yeah.
Again, this is no reference for the society to understand what drag king, let alone drag queen, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
I had people walk away from me, scared of me on the streets of Philly. Those were the beginning days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also, a year later, had press coverage coming in. And I was really blessed to have that because then as people saw me more, right?
Yeah.
Like the Philly scene being small town.
Yeah.
Then you have people, instead of making fun of me or being scared, leaving my high fives hanging. Who would leave Wang's high five hanging?
Nobody
Now,
today.
Who? Why you do? But back then I had all of that. So it did shift. And then from a microcosm viewpoint, I felt that did shift people's opinion. When they see more of you in the press, when they are not afraid of the unknown, when it becomes the known, then I had people yelling at me from their cars and stopping me on the street to get a photo. So now we're moving into 06, 07.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. And I think it ties a lot to what's happening in the world today, right? As we're, before all of pandemic stuff started happening, right? People were starting to really, say, oh, this is going to be the year of the king, or kings are getting acknowledged. And, bit by bit, the more that we see drag kings in the world, normalized as not boring and normalized as competitors and normalized as like performers in their own right and not just like some knockoff version of a drag king. Like the more we see it, the more that people start to realize that it might be something they want to see, right? And then they're not avoiding your high five on the street, right?
Yeah. I mean, this year was interesting because I would have been in one of the most major publication newspapers in the world. We would have had, and I say we because it's us kings, right?
Yeah.
We would have been in a major newspaper. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. Everyone put out good wishes that it'll still somehow pop up.
Yeah.
However, this year, 2020, at least Amazon Prime Video's Prime website did ask me to be a king amongst all queens.
Which is so great.
Yeah, so all Rue girls. And Verizon Media is doing a solo piece with Behind the Drag, their series. So
Which is
only king. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are making a bit of progress. Shout out to Landon, all the kings,
Yep.
doing their own thing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just bit by bit. Hopefully especially once all of this is over, we can start building back and getting back on stage and getting back on the street and getting back into clubs and all of the places.
Wait, I'm actually going to stop you there.
Yeah.
I'm going to encourage everyone to do what I feel would be my 2 cents on this. screw all that noise. Do it now.
Yeah.
Do what you can at every single moment to the safest that you feel, as well as what you're inspired, to do. There is no waiting. I promise you, there is no waiting for someone else's permission. There's not waiting for someone else's authority, someone else's power.
Yeah.
There's no waiting for someone else to give you what you want. Granted, it's easier said than done.
Sure.
Right? We see the person that has the CEO of a company. We see the main producer, the executive producers with the money. We see people that own something else, that have the power. But what's to say we can't gather, like by pure inspiration, not because Wayne said so, but like by sheer, that it's like that same gut feeling that's pulling you, that pulled me. What's your version of that?
Yeah.
Your version is doing these interviews. Your version is doing, right?
Yeah.
From an academic point of view. Awesome.
Yeah.
Kill it, slay it, keep doing it. But for everyone else, there must be something that we don't have to wait, because what do we know the finite point is for this to all be over? Shout out to Motherland, Taiwan, okay? Shout out to the Motherland, who 24 million people did get it in control.
Yep.
Roughly under 460 cases to date, 7 deaths. So it's possible, but we're not that. So let's just continue, right?
Yeah.
To do what we can, and that's what I know for sure.
For sure.
I'm bi-coastal, so I can feel where I should be in New York and LA.
Yeah.
I was able to orchestrate a safe social distance filming for my music video.
Oh, that's great.
Or Hey Baby, available on iTunes, plugging that in.
Oh, of course.
iTunes, all the platforms. But, right, like to film a real music video, you have to orchestrate being safe. But for the most part, it doesn't show the pandemic.
Right.
So come on, guys. We are stronger than that. We're more creative than that.
Yep.
Right? More resilient.
Yeah.
More powerful than that. We can work together.
Yeah. Well, and I have been seeing so many Kings pivoting to online shows, doing some really just incredible artwork with video and photo and makeup art and, leveraging social media. So there are definitely avenues for continuing to or learning new avenues, I suppose, for making art.
Right?
Yeah.
You could totally learn new avenues. Like there was a lot of stuff that just led me a different direction.
Yeah.
I wasn't stuck on lip syncing if I didn't love lip syncing.
Yeah.
Being an MC and end up, improving my improv chops. So, let yourself be guided. Let the energy pull you.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's such good advice. Especially right now, but in general. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of how your background played into who your character is and who your character isn't too, right? Like who is Wang and how is he different from the person that you are when you're not?
Ooh, okay. So here's what I thought to be interesting is people expect me to be Wang when befriending me, as if I'm like a party boy all the time.
Yep.
And, there may or may not be ladies always around. I can't verify this. Neither can my publicist. But I'm just saying that I am actually not Wang all the time. So that is the thing. I'm a little bit more zen. I actually facilitate a shamanic style of breath work, which is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
That I've been doing since 2008 or receiving it since 2006, so roughly the same amount of time as Wang.
Oh, wow.
So it, as a practitioner and also just generally guiding people in meditation and mindfulness, it's as if the home life is a little bit more quiet, or who I am is a bit more serious.
Yeah.
And when it's Wang time, then it's Wang time. No problem.
All bets are off.
Yeah, all bets are off. Let's go. Yeah, yo. But but people, I guess, find it interesting, and that's kind of why I want to like take masks off
Yeah.
and be with you as myself today.
Yeah.
Just because there's been so much of Wang for 15 years
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to have that be the only thing, the
Mm-hmm.
only dimension. We are multifaceted creatures, right?
Yeah.
So,
100%.
yeah. So there could be the office nerd me, there could be all kinds of, we're all, very dynamic. So
Yeah.
that's the main thing I would have to say is that there's another part of my background that people may not know.
Yeah.
So I used to drink a lot, but as I started meditating more, or maybe like cleansing, purifying kind of stuff, like my body rejected it. Like we're talking top shelf free drinks. Who wants to give that up? But yeah, but you gotta listen to your body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do drink less, and um, yeah, it's been interesting because people expect Wang all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I feel like with Will, I've done such a poor job of separating myself from my like burlesque life and my drag life and all of that. So people just mainly assume it's just me all the time. So I feel like my character isn't, even though Will is a misogynistic asshole. For the most part, he's still just kind of like people look at him and he's also just Kyla, you know. Um, but I feel like Wang is such a very specific like character, you know, like he is performance art and it's wonderful, you know. So I can't imagine trying to have that be like on all the time, you know.
Well, I mean, but would you really want 20 times more excited all the time,
It's so
But
good. Yeah.
all the time, maybe. But I would say that that's the beauty of drag. We get to be an aspect of ourselves that does not get to be expressed. We get to explore what wants to be expressed. I get to say anything I want to as Wang.
Mm.
Part of the immigrant portion does help the sort of like, oh, I didn't know, oh, really, kind of thing. Very Jack Tripper Three's Company, that
Mm-hmm.
reference.
Yep.
Um, it's also a way to um, hide, I guess, or express some emotions.
Mm-hmm.
There's sensitive Wang. So Wang could be a sensitive man while being a little misogynistic.
Right.
Yeah, you have to understand who I really am underneath that.
Exactly.
And so I try to bring a more heartfelt kind of related, as well as just this immense amount of joy that I have inside,
Yeah.
as well as tears of a clown.
That's great. Yeah. So when you were developing Wang, I'm assuming there was some pushback from family and kind of trying to like how did you navigate kind of coming out as Wang?
I waited. So this is including the timeline of the little part of me that was still unsure,
Yeah.
uh, whether it's shame, guilt, something just like unsure of what I was doing because I didn't have role models.
Right.
I have to be honest. You're talking about if you guys can easily reference, if I could just say Crazy Rich Asians, and
Right.
you know what that is.
Yeah.
So imagine 25 years without an all Asian American cast
Wow.
in a feature film.
Yeah.
So 25 years prior to Crazy Rich Asians was the only other movie that was like popular and like totally know it.
Mm-hmm.
Boys Club.
Yep.
And that was a sorrow That's a crying ass movie.
Yeah.
So it weaves this four stories of Asian women and families, right? And
Yeah.
different generations. So what you have is less role models. So I did look around. If you are less certain of yourself, if you were made fun of, growing up, if you were looking to the outside world
Mm-hmm.
as a reference for who you are, you're a little fucked. But you that's life.
Right.
Till you grow and you see more and more of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I do share my first epiphany when I was roughly 16, 17. Again, growing up and going to a small town of 5,000,
Yeah.
where if your eyes are made fun of, then you think something's wrong and your eyes are small, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what the reference point is.
Right.
But my first epiphany was leaving that small town, and I got complimented. And I thought they were still making fun of me because I couldn't hear the compliment until it clicked. And it was just like, wait a second, there's like 4 billion plus of us. Like, if you just want to talk about sheer numbers.
Yeah.
So it's not me, it's you. Like your perspective looking at me is off.
Right.
And me looking out at you. And that's what I get to do with Wang. It's me. I get to be in control of me,
Mm-hmm.
looking out of Wang at the world.
I like that.
And so it's a fun and interesting. Well, come on, guys, we do drag.
Right.
That's what we
Right.
get to do, right?
Yeah.
We get to put on the mask and we get to say, okay, how do you interact with Wang?
Right.
And yeah, so it has grown, and the more confident and more self-love I have for myself inside, then the more comfortable I am as Wang. I think that really, has benefited a lot.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's a point in many I'm not going to speak for everybody, right? But in many drag journeys where you have that moment of like shame or fear of like what will people think of me for doing this, right?
Right.
I know that I've definitely had some issues with family because of it. Like some of my family doesn't even care. Like I've twirled tassels in their faces, but some parts of my family like are very like we grew up in this very like it was liberal, where it was like, we respect gay people. Like that's the mindset.
At least your family did.
Yeah, I mean, we're very
not.
lucky. Yeah.
Right. Mine did not. So I waited till I got in the press to show my family.
Oh, so you had that validation from the outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I trained in breath work, that's what my teachers and all the other elders or more wise, whatever people shared with me is that the universe is telling me, like the universe is confirming, and reflecting something for me, that which I could not get from my parents. So I thought it was a wrongness. I thought it was weird. I had other Asian people, be afraid of me, right? So I when I looked outside, I didn't see any other Asians doing this.
Yeah.
But I stayed true to myself. I stayed with a gut feeling, and I just kept with it. I even after I showed the press clippings, they were still like, okay. But because guess why? This was really trippy to also discover, years later, right?
Yeah.
It was only 2 years ago, or let me just put this, it was 2018 when Taiwan got wind of me. And that's when Les's magazine flew me to Taiwan to be in the Pride show. They did a 6-page spread on me.
Wow.
But prior to that, because they were just like, oh, like you're the first, in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And at that time, I started to look online. There were roughly 20-ish, Asian heritage drag kings in the world. Now, only a couple of years later, there's about 40 or less that I've found.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting when you look at that, like how much we look for validation to the outside.
Yeah.
It's never about that. Why compare yourself? So I feel that it's also interesting because without the TV shows showing drag, and what drag, whether it's a monster drag or pageant kind of glamazon drag.
Yeah.
All the other drag is valid, but we, the younger generation might be looking to TV and media then
Mm-hmm.
for their cues, when really art is art, and it still is back to what do you want to express. And that's
Yeah.
why I love some of the innovative uh, kings and things out there right now, right?
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
if
totally.
we talk about being king, we get to say just like, okay, drag kings, masculine theatrical performance,
Right.
as far as like, let's just kind of like talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
arena. But then there's the growth and evolution of drag, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's so neat. A lot of the conversations that I've had on this podcast, right? I ask people, what do you think, how do you describe what drag is? And everybody kind of starts in the like, well, I don't want to be essentializing, and it's masculine, and it's, and there are male impersonators, but then there's also stuff that isn't based on gender, and it just kind of, it's so interesting how this art form can take on the shape of so many different things, and it really takes the shape of what you put into it, right? And so, for somebody like me, I'm more of a male impersonator in the way that I present, right? My focus is on burlesque and performance and less about makeup, but there are some kings and things that are like, you look at their just the art that they create with their bodies, and like, who cares if it's masculine or whatever? And like, I don't know, it's so incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I guess in some ways having more avenues, like, for example, like the Kings of the World show that's been on Twitch, right? Or being able to go on Instagram and search drag kings of Instagram or whatever, to see that it's not just this very narrow definition of like male impersonator who happens to look a certain way and can compete in a pageant, or, this specific kind of monster who, that's just one kind of alternative drag.
There is a big Wikipedia, on drag kings, and I
Yeah.
think it's expanded
Yeah.
or come up with new terms, you know.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that is interesting is terminology and who gets to create it. And
Yeah.
so people writing articles and things like that, if it's used more, right, it could be kind of pegged.
Yeah.
So we could choose our own wording that's just like, will it be kings and things? What do we want? What do we want? And so I'm going to also encourage the non-performers, but the allies and the fans to start writing, articles.
Yeah. Yeah. And pay for shows, come to shows, whether it's online or in person, right? Like, obviously in
Right.
person right now, maybe not so much, but like, show up and be open to, and even for other performers, because I will say, I started out as a very closed-minded person. I started out liking drag queens, and I wanted to be a drag queen, and that was like the thing. And when I learned about kings, it was like, okay, so this is a male impersonator, right? But being open to having your ideas about definitions expanded, right? And I think,
Right.
it
And
helps.
gender is also part of that too, because just from a slightly different perspective,
Yeah.
in Mandarin, the word ta is they. So just saying ta is just communication. Plural is tamen. So ta is already gender neutral. Like, you just say it and it's just super quick, like, yeah, that person, or they're coming for dinner,
Yeah.
like, right? So it's plural. But here we just get into this whole, so Spanish doesn't help because that's also gendered language. A
Right.
lot of Spanish languages are like that. So, we're just having these primary problems that start with a language. We
Yeah.
just want to communicate, and we want to reference something a little
Right.
quicker, right? And those that aren't trying to offend are not trying to offend. And those that just can't get it in their thick skull that misgendering is a thing, then they're not willing to change for what exists right now, which happens to be, language barrier, perhaps.
Yeah.
Like, I really love studying about two-spirited and the native, perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I just imagine, what if we already had five genders? Like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't society now, society was not always like this
Yeah.
right now. And I say that because I come from a different culture. I was born in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come from somewhere else and you move to a completely different land, it's a different universe. It's a different world. You're literally stepping into something that's so far away
Yeah.
that people don't realize that airplanes were once invented. They had to be invented. So, right? So we
Yeah.
could fly. And then as we got to do that faster, you're just leaping, into a new world.
Yep.
And if we could just be maybe a little less offended, but just really reiterate that if society already accepted us as part of nature
Mm-hmm.
and already realized that there were, masculine, feminine, and then the spectrum in between,
Yep.
that there is not a binary problem. And we really forget that we were once revered, that you could be born into society
Yeah.
already having a place in society. You're looked at as like, your role might be medicine woman, medicine person, right?
Yeah.
You would be good as this kind of healer and that. And so I want to kind of embrace that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm studying rhetoric, so like the idea of talking about like how do these words help form our entire like sense of what the world is so yeah, that's my jam. So
Oh, yes. Yes,
we,
academia.
yeah, we should talk about this offline.
Yes.
I love it. So okay, so we talked a little bit about your history up until about 2007. How did you get from that first, like you're starting to make a place in the world to where you are now? I know that's there's a ton of years in between, but kind of what was that process like for you?
Um, I'm going to bring back failure,
Yeah.
and I'm going to bring back extreme success. I mean, again, rhetoric, but like, let's just say failure and extreme success.
Mm-hmm.
And my own inner growth that took some time to understand, if we want to say that this was more real
Mm-hmm.
than what your opinion is of yourself, right?
Yeah.
So like, why is our society calling it a failure, right? Why do we say it's not successful, or why do we make it about us rather than that the incident could have been, attended better, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're, I would say that I had a little hiatus as Wang,
Mm-hmm.
and few people know about that. So it's like when I started training in meditation, energy work, and on my own healing journey, that was a process.
Yeah.
And the switch was really there for me, that I really also took that on because, it's still a career. It's still like we're all still trying to pay rent at the end of the day.
Yep.
And we also have other interests, right?
Yeah.
So you could call it like multi-potentialite or whatever you like. But here's the thing. 2008, 2009, I moved to New York, and this was a huge part that I even freak out a little bit. But here's what's possible with kings. And please don't listen to this as bragging, but listen to it as what is possible.
Yeah.
This what was possible pre RPDR
Mm-hmm.
for any queen or king on television, and for a king, period.
Yeah.
So Philly wanted me, Bump Lounge. I'm gonna use names because I respect to them. So Bump Lounge in the neighborhood had a Wednesday karaoke thing they wanted me to host, and at that time I had a day job in New York because we keep popping back Philly, New York for this New York dream, and they asked me, and I was just like, wow, I would love to However, I have this day job. What can we make possible?
Yeah.
And I learned that through courses that I took to just like, be in and instead of or, either this or that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just see what they would suggest. Holy cow, they came back to me with, okay, here's a stretch limousine. We'll pick you up in New York, bring you to Philly, bring you back to New York, pay you $300, and you could bring whoever you want in the limo with you, and you can get free food and drinks. And I was just like, what? Like, for a whole year they did this.
Wow.
Yeah. Really a blessing. So it was a moment where I had to try to not sound stupid and just be like, so when you, okay, oh, amazing. So do you mean you'll pick me up at the bus station? Or like, I was trying to phrase it where I was just like, so when you...
Yeah.
Because I didn't think a stretch limo that I was able to have a stretch limo.
Yeah.
But in my day job, every goddamn day I saw executive cars and limos, and I'd be all shady, like, wish I had one of those limos picking me up. To be on executive again limo. I was muttering under my breath, and then I got my stretch limo, which was super freaky.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I was so committed. I was very committed to both. I did not quit my day job. I did not call out because I was drunk. I did not call out from a hangover. Yeah. I got home around 3 a.m. I tried to sleep on the limo.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about getting changed in the limo. You're talking about just like making it happen. I got hit by a car and messed up my ankle, and still never canceled out on the show nor my day job.
Oh my gosh.
Commitment is a thing. Commitment is a thing, and putting in the work
is
a thing. Let's talk about things.
Yeah.
So, putting in the work. Gumption plus commitment, perseverance,
Yeah.
Like I said, even though people thought those wallet photos were weird, like, all right, what is this? But they kept them. If they fell out of a wallet, it was like people looked at them weird. And these straight men would be like, oh, excuse me. Pardon me.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so it's not about caring, after all, what the outside world thinks of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And putting in that work is, I mean, you talk about this, you have a history as a king, right? Like, this isn't like an overnight, you went viral on TikTok and now you're on television or something, right? Like, you put in the work.
I think I have to do TikTok.
Who
wants to do TikTok with Wang? Help old Wang out.
I'm totally down. I'm not a TikTok expert. I started going on it during the pandemic, and it's so much fun. It's like the most joyful place on the internet. I'm sure there's also like terrible parts of TikTok, but the algorithm knows I don't want to see it, so.
I doubt it. It seems pretty fun.
Yeah.
So evolution, right? And not resisting. So that's awesome.
Yeah, being willing to, I mean, it's so much effort. It's like Instagram, you can be like, this is a show photo, here you go. TikTok, you have to be like, I know what this meme is, and then I know how to turn this meme into something about me, and then I can spend 4 hours editing the video to make it about me and for 15 seconds. Yeah.
Damn.
Oh my God, yeah, about that.
Yes.
But the point is, though, that you put in that work, and it was not a guarantee. None of this was guaranteed, right?
None of it is a guarantee at all. It is doing what you enjoy. It's crashing the Pride Parade in New York with a rickshaw, like a pedicab.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make friends with a pedicab, and then I have my own float. It's about wanging it.
Yeah.
Like, it really was wanging it. It was really like just doing what is interesting and putting a twist in it. So why wouldn't Wang have a rickshaw?
Right.
Pedicab, his own float, 2 women by the side. Come on now. Like, we're in.
That's amazing.
it took years of traveling,
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, earning my own coin, still doing the day job, and swinging hard at night. It was all of it. It's balancing. It's part of traveling the world and filming, and maybe it's the kung fu I studied, but or the energy work, but you're still just hoping that there's not danger around. You're kind
Yeah.
of trying to sense that, and then you go for it. Getting into Wang in South America and things like that, and just filming it and interacting with people, and and from a good-hearted place, what happens? You
Mm-hmm.
end up giving people joy.
Mm,
Yeah, that's what I felt I got out of it. So you
that's
just keep
awesome.
showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up with hopefully less of that entitlement or
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, vibe. And you're playing with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So, as we're wrapping up, are there things that you feel like we didn't talk enough about, or things that you'd like to kind of make sure that we talk about, parts of Wang or King history or anything, or community, etc., that you want to make sure is heard?
Okay.
Yeah.
I do feel that we could take this opportunity to really take this moment in time
Mm-hmm.
that is more unique than any experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I've seen 9/11 with my own eyes. So, of all the uh, apocalypses, what's the plural? Apocalypses.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the most severe one.
Yeah.
So, I would take this opportunity as the most unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely advocate for going inward, sorting out what you can,
Yeah.
reaching out when you do need help. You know, reach out to me personally if you like. Uh, I am offering that to my community.
Yeah.
I also feel that reaching out to your friends, but it's Drag King plus. I think a commonality, and it's cool that you're in the burlesque world as well.
Yeah.
So it is assigned female at birth,
Mm-hmm.
majority, that sort of, primary experience is the feminine. And why is there so much, and I'm going to get real here, why is there so much abuse energy
Yeah.
going on as we live our lives? Yes, you know, we know what it is. We know what's out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
So given that there is, how do we band together? So I work a lot with the Asian burlesque community,
Yeah.
uh, being a host for the International Asian Burlesque Extravaganza for years
Yes.
now. It's one of my favorites. Um, Coco Ono and I are doing a monthly Asian female witchy fetish vibe show
That's great.
called Sacred Wounds.
That's awesome.
I've also been in conversation with the Cake Boys,
Uh huh.
in New York, right? Doing the Twitch shows. They're doing the Twitch shows. Moby Dick is hosting the Twitch shows.
Mm-hmm.
However, just being in conversation, reaching out, these are things happening behind the scenes that people don't see. So I really recommend just people going behind the scenes, going inward,
Yeah.
going behind the scenes and touching base, checking in on your friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all are pulling in together and tessellating. Tessellate, Google it. Google what that means.
Yeah.
And it's about, getting in where you fit in, kind of harmonizing and kind of coming in together,
Yeah.
to form a different shape.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
love
think
it.
that's possible now.
I love it. And it is. It's possible and it's necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Wang, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm I'm so happy that we got to have this mask off moment as well. It was such a pleasure to meet you mask on last year, almost
Yeah.
exactly a year ago.
Happy beginnings. That's what I call that. That was our happy beginning.
Yeah. And it's you're just such a joy to watch on stage. So I appreciate getting to have this like more zen conversation as well. You know, like it's neat to know both sides of you. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah.
More to come, baby.
If you want to learn more about today's guests, head over to facebook.com/kingsvoicespod or check out the comments or the description in the YouTube channel, King's Voices Pod. There I'll post all the links to everything you want to know about today's guest, and you can find them from there. If you are interested in becoming a guest yourself, then why not shoot me an email at willxulydrag@gmail.com or shoot me a message on Facebook at facebook.com/kingsvoicespod. All right, so that's it for today. And remember, keep your toxic masculinity to yourself, but share your drag with the world.